Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So today we're gonna review many of the stories, including that one, the top political story around the Ukraine negotiations in Istanbul, or so-called negotiations. Plus I'm gonna tell you what has just happened in Crimea. There was kind of the big kaboom. Well, step by step. Let's start from political topic. And yeah, the meeting between Russian and the Ukrainian side is already over. I would tell you that there were almost no surprises except one, and those news are really huge. But just stay with me, I'm gonna tell you later about kind of the good news actually, the outcome of the meeting. But in general, my friends, the meeting itself is just a circus. The Russian delegation with Medinsky in charge demanded American representatives and Turkish ones to leave the meeting. So there were just Ukrainian and Russian representatives. And by the way, from Ukrainian side, there was Minister of the Foreign Affairs, the head of the President's Office of Ukraine, and the Ukrainian Defense Minister Umerov. And Russian group was presented with deputies of deputies. And this shows the attitude of Russia towards those negotiations. The conversation between two of the delegations lasted for less than 2 hours. And immediately to the reference of some of the Ukrainian officials, media started to publish the information about actual Russian demands for Ukrainian side, that Ukraine should leave Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast fully. Even though Russia is not controlling the vast part of the Donetsk Oblast, the big city of Zaporizhia, Kherson, yeah, they left Kherson as you remember, and this demand for the Russian side is to implement the 30-day ceasefire, which, as you understand, is absolute unrealistic craziness. Moreover, according to the insights which were coming, Ukraine declined this demand from Russia, but Russian delegation stood up and said, okay, next time we're gonna speak not about those 4 regions, we're gonna speak about 5 regions. It could be Sumy, they said. And actually there is the fighting, kind of the significant one, happening in Kupiansk region of the Kharkiv Oblast, and also Russians more than 1 year ago already tried to go to Kharkiv, but their attack operation was a total failure. Ukraine stopped Russian offensive in Vovchansk and not far away from Hlebok, and recently Ukraine even started the counter-offensive. I spoke about it in one of my videos. And after the Kursk operation, they entered Sumy region. By the way, Ukraine still controls some of the Kursk territory of Russia, and yes, Sumy is very close to the Russian border, as you may see here, but it doesn't mean that there is significant threat for Sumy, and that Russia is definitely capable to get this city under control. Russia tried to encircle Sumy, actually they almost managed to do it in 2022, but failed with their mission and forcibly retreated from this area. Ukraine started its counterattack. All of those green areas are the previously occupied territories by Russia. So with their most capable forces, by the time Ukrainian defense was quite weak, Russia didn't manage to get their task done, and now they promise to achieve the huge result, occupying Sumy, occupying Kharkiv. I would say it's just bluffing. Well, the leader of the Russian group already commented the result of the first day of negotiations. He said that there will be no ceasefire because Ukraine could use the time to regroup its forces and so on. Those who demand ceasefire do not study history, and during the history, Russia was fighting for many years. Are they ready to fight with us for many years? He asked. He also somehow mentioned Sweden, saying that Russia was fighting against them for 21 years, and Sweden is not that mighty country any longer. That's the outcome of that war. And he also mentioned that Russia may fight in Ukraine for ages. So Russia here openly tells to everyone, to Donald Trump, our European allies as well, that Russia is not willing to ceasefire. They're not willing to stop the war. However, they're okay with negotiations. They might conduct those for many years in parallel with the war actions. So yeah, we already have the reference to the words of Medinsky. We don't want war, but we are ready to fight for year 2, 3, however long it takes. We fought Sweden for 21 years. How long are you ready to fight? And one of the Russian foreign ministry officials, Rodion Miroshnik, already commented that the Ukraine delegation hoped for the ceasefire in Istanbul to regroup and rearm its army, but didn't get what they wanted. And indeed, we have the information from insides that Ukraine demanded ceasefire from Russia because actually it's very profitable for Ukraine. That's why Ukraine actually supported the initiative of Donald Trump for the 30-day ceasefire. But as you see, Russia is not okay with that. In general, we understand that Russia has advantage on the front lines. They receive weaponry from their allies. North Korea sends millions of artillery shells. Russia still has lots of the human resources, and they understand that they can prolong this war. And yeah, they struggle with armored vehicles, but they still produce those, and while producing, they may use civilian vehicles, Bukhanka vans, motorcycles, or like they do usually, Russian infantry attacks on their bare feet. It means that if we want to achieve the ceasefire, Ukraine should obtain enough weaponry to conquer the Russian army, to make any sort of the advancements, even lightest, impossible for Russians. And that is how they will be interested not to retreat but keep the current ground, and they would call themselves for the ceasefire. Without superiority in military, there is no go scenario for the ceasefire in Ukrainian front lines. And the Russian media already came out with a report about the outcome of the meeting. I put the Telegram channel bit.ly here because he put the subtitles towards this video for Western audience to check it out. And let's listen and read out the translation. The text is on your screens. And just for your convenience, I'll expedite the video by 50%.
Что касается заявлений, которые следовали внутри от сторон, от нашей стороны, мы знаем, что было утверждение, последовавшего от одного из наших переговорщиков, о том, что если прямо сейчас, в ближайшее время, не будут признаны 4 новых российских региона, то в следующий раз будет уже 6 регионов. Эта фраза внутри звучала, можем это подтвердить со ссылкой на наши достоверные источники, близкие к переговорному процессу.
So Ukraine, give us 4 of your regions, otherwise you have to give us 6 of the regions. Before I said 5, but no, 6, including Sumy and Kharkiv. But Russia is definitely far away from even reaching control over 4 regions, and they demand more. That's basically no-go scenario for any sort of the negotiations, and they demanded not to end this war but for 30 days lasting ceasefire. That's why from the very beginning I called that meeting as some sort of the circus. Circus for Donald Trump, who is not the main viewer, I would say, but the main clown. A spokesman of Ukrainian Foreign Ministry says that they will not disclose all of the details of the conversation with the Russians, but demands from the Russian side were totally unacceptable. Well, we also know that the Ukrainian delegation asked the Russian one to organize the personal meeting between Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Russians confirmed that, and they say that they will pass this information to the President's Office of Russia. The Ukrainian delegation is still out there in Istanbul, the Russian one as well, and rumors say that they could meet one more time. And the good news, I promise you to tell, that there will be a massive exchange of prisoners of war. 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers and 1,000 Russian ones. Well, some say that exchange is profitable for Russia because Russia actually has more prisoners of war than Ukraine. It basically happened like that because Ukraine wasn't waiting for the Russian attack, honestly, especially on the south. And you might remember what happened in Mariupol, then thousands of Ukrainians had to surrender in Azovstal to Russians, and they were just partially returned. So indeed, Russia has more prisoners of war. For this reason, Ukraine demanded exchange all on all, but Russia agreed on 1,000 on 1,000. Nevertheless, it's better, much better than nothing, because our guys will return home, and Russian ones as well. And it's the only positive side of those negotiations. The rest, well, basically those are not negotiations. You cannot call them like that. Those are just open demands from the Russian side to Ukraine to surrender. And they continue to say about denazification, demilitarization, that Ukraine shouldn't join NATO, like standard demands. As for me, it is quite strange that Russia demands that stuff, because look at the territories they lost since the last negotiations, all of those green territories. So if we speak about the realities on the front lines, that saying Russia likes to pronounce as usual, the realities are not good for Russia. They bog down, sometimes they take the ground, but they advance very, very, very slowly. And if they continue to advance like that, they may occupy Ukraine in roughly 2 centuries, wasting around 100 million soldiers. Those numbers have already been calculated by media. So Russia understands that it cannot achieve the result on the front lines, and for this reason they act in favor of Donald Trump's administration to show that Ukraine is incompetent, please cancel the military support of Ukraine, lift the sanctions, and that is how Russia may achieve a result on the front line. Trump, unfortunately for Ukraine and Russia, is the key player, because Europe is still unable to replace all of the weaponry coming to Ukraine, and for Russia it's important to break through Ukrainian defense, and it is only possible if Russia has the significant advantage, like several times more resources compared to Ukraine. Well, for now it's not like that. Immediately after those circus fake negotiations ended, Zelensky, European leaders, they all called Donald Trump to state what they think about it. And they all say that it's now clear which side is not supporting peace deal. It is Russia. Even Italian leader Meloni later on supported this statement. So the coalition of the willing recognized the demands from the Russian side as unrealistic. And yeah, why Zelensky went to Albania? Because there is the big meeting there between many of the European countries, not just European Union countries, but it's the huge summit. But what Donald Trump says?
I will tell you that the world is a much safer place right now, and I think in 2 or 3 weeks we could have it be a much, much safer place.
He promised a safer place. Donald Trump lives in his own environmental or informational bubble. Well, at the same time, Putin is willing to meet not with Zelensky, but with Donald Trump. Actually, it was the idea of Donald Trump to recently escalate this idea of meeting of the Russian leader, dictator, with the American, the same person. I honestly do not understand why Trump really needs that personal meeting, because it solves or resolves nothing. It will just add some points to Vladimir Putin, showing that he is not isolated, even after all of those war crimes which he did. And basically, guys, it's the encouragement of the other dictators or autocracies to act in the same way as Russia does towards Ukraine. For example, China may start their special military operation against Taiwan. And do you think that Trump will definitely defend Taiwan? Well, we'll see. Anyways, I hope that China will not perform that step, but it's not unrealistic as it was before Donald Trump's presidency. Alright guys, so what's the main outcome of those negotiations? That I might tell you, the war will continue for many months and probably for many years even. While Putin is in power, there will be a war. Yeah, there is also the chance for the war to continue even after Putin's kaput. But I think that Russian elite will try to blame Putin for everything, and they'll try to restore the previous order because it simply was profitable for them personally to have the business outside Russia, in Europe, in the United States. They don't want those sanctions after all. It is like with Stalin. Then he died, he was blamed for absolutely everything. It was decultization in Soviet Union and many prisoners were released. So hopefully in Russia it will be the same, but Ukraine has to survive till that time, and I'm sure it will. What does this Russian soldier try to tell us? Maybe subscribe for my Patreon page, it is available right in the video description below, or join the membership on the channel, and that is how, my friends, you just keep me running. If you cannot do it, just press your huge like and also subscribe for the channel. Yeah, just this YouTube channel, because that is how you also help me a lot. Thanks guys, you're just awesome. Yeah, we have the small corporation here, as you may see. Alright, I promised you the big kaboom in Crimea, so here we go. This is the real image of Privolne village in Crimea, 220 kilometers away from the Ukrainian controlled territory. And the local military facility there just vanished. The video was presented by the eyewitness there. And I already published it on my Telegram channel. Here guys, unfortunately just the screenshot for you with some of the squares. By the way, I didn't put those. And judging on the secondary kabooms, indeed it was the Russian big ammunition storage. and the fire still continues there by the time I am filming this video. This image was taken from far away, you may see the scale of the fire. And it's the big Russian base for two of the regiments, 126 separate Coastal Defense Brigade and 8 separate artillery regiment. It looks like Russia stored lots of the artillery shells out there. Guys, we have the confirmation that Ukraine lost F-16 aircraft. It happened the last night. May 16, 3:30 at night, the airplane was used to repel the Russian attack on Ukrainian infrastructure. Pilot destroyed 3 air targets, was working on the 4th using aircraft cannon. However, an emergency situation arose on board. The pilot took the plane away from the settlement and successfully ejected. So luckily pilot survived that accident. What was the cause of it? They do not specify. It could be friendly fire, it could be a malfunction of the airplane, it could be, some of the debris coming from the drone which could hit the airplane. It happened before with MiG-29 at least. The pilot's well-being is satisfactory, he's in a safe place, his life and health are not in danger. The investigative committee is established there, but no one will tell you for sure what happened, because after all, it's military, they have classified information. Well, the last months Ukraine lost F-16 because Russia shot it down, probably in Sumy region. Back then, pilot unfortunately was unalived as well. As it happened, by the way, during the first case of the loss of F-16, it was after all a friendly fire from a Ukrainian Patriot system. There was pilot loss as well. And the last night Ukraine lost F-16 but without pilot loss, and it is at least good. Well, we have good news from Norway. They promised to deliver all F-16 jets to Ukraine till the end of this year. We're speaking about totally 6 of the airplanes. As you see, being a pilot of Ukrainian Air Force, then Ukraine is at war with Russia, and even flying F-16 is kind of the risky job. And Ukraine, by the way, is not using those F-16s widely on the front lines, otherwise there could be way more losses. Ukraine needs many of those jets to have the air superiority, and that is how Ukraine could use those right on the front lines. Kind of the rare video of Ukrainian FPV drone, you see how it flies towards the helicopter. There is the Russian K-52 and it was barely a hit. Oh my god, it was so close. I wonder if it was really a hit or not. Because in the local Russian groups we have the information about the FPV drone strike on the Russian K-52. It comes together with the life loss of one of the Russian pilots. Well, rumors say that it was the remote detonation strike on the Russian helicopter. Probably it was on the ground by the time. And yeah, it's not the Ukrainian flag out there, it's the Russian aviation flag. It has same colors or similar colors to Ukrainian. Well, Ukrainian volunteer Sternenko says that helicopter after all was hit by Ukrainian drone, and it's the first strike of that kind. However, I still don't have the confirmation from the surveillance drone in the region, and we don't see the helicopter's debris. But definitely drone lost the contact here, maybe hitting some of the blades of the rotor. Guys, let's go to the front lines update, because Russians advanced near Mirolubivka. They expanded the gray area and they want to create some sort of the pocket for Ukrainian army near Yelizavetivka village. The small one, but still Ukrainian army is presented out there. Well, I already see what is happening. Let's switch to the satellite image for you to check out the picture, where you may see roads and settlements with more detail. So Russia wants to occupy this village of Novoekonomichne, and from this village they wanted to attack Mirnograd and also advance from this side. So as usual, they're at least double vector attacks. So the pocket is here, it hasn't been fully created, but Russia is very active on 2 of those directions. And also we have the update from Kurakhove direction, where Ukraine had to leave this entire area. So it was yesterday and it is today. Russia took control. It was confirmed that Russia took control over those fields and went to Bahatir small village. Other than that, there were no any changes on the front lines for the last 24 hours. Well, the last night Russia launched the air attack on Ukraine, and that's how Ukraine actually lost F-16 in the fight against Russian drones. And by the way, the effectiveness of the Russian Giran or Shahid drones has been increased by 36%. Now Russia may remotely control those drones. And guys, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video, also subscribe for this channel. By doing so, you help me a lot, and I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.